Hello there, everyone. How you doing today? I hope you're all well. Today we're going into r/prorevenge, where the revenge is absolutely glorious. If you enjoy, like and subscribe, and let's get started. Okay? Stiff me on overtime? Cue the long, expensive revenge. This happened in the early 2000s when I joined a startup. We agreed on a salary and no paid overtime, and an evaluation in 3 months and then an annually. Standard stuff mostly. It was a very mediocre salary for the work, but I really liked the work itself, which was extremely interesting and challenging. For me, even if the finances were so-so, I felt like I'd learn a lot of skills which would be useful in the future. After 3 years and having 10 decent clients and a bunch of clients trialing and money rolling in, the talk turned to back pay and paid overtime plus compensating for the past overtime. At that point, around $50,000 in overtime had been accrued, which is honestly a lot. Legally, it couldn't be back pay, so the talk was always of a discretionary bonus. Now, at this point, everyone is okay with this, myself included, and this was discussed in writing via company emails too, so I felt secure and that no bad will was in play. I felt the company should be able to afford the payment equally. I'd happily settle for an equity at a discount, which is legally possible there, if cash flow was an issue. The discussions about back pay, possible equity, and now started to drag on, and I was getting irked by this. In the end, I was made another offer of equity, which meant the company valuation was far beyond anything reasonable, in the hundreds of millions, and I'd get a minuscule stake, less than 0.01% of the company, with 9 employees, and a projected annual turnover of around $2 million. It was an FU of sorts to stiff me out of money, and I didn't want to take that lying down. To say I was furious was an understatement. Anyway, the day he made that offer, I handed in my resignation. This sent the CTO into panic mode because the CEO had refused an updated contract, and I was still on a 1-month notice period. Plus, I had a lot of untaken paid leave. Basically, it meant I was walking out right then and there, so off I went that very same day, to the shock and surprise of everyone, I guess. The next day, I sent an official registered letter requesting my overtime back pay and received a negative response, which I followed up with another detailed demand. This was also rejected because the bonus was discretionary and there is no overtime. However, I'd been seeking legal advice, and I understood that they didn't have a leg to stand on if I'm willing to pay for an attorney. As the liability in such matters is firmly and 100% on the employer, boy was I willing. You need to understand that going to a lawyer was very rare in those parts back then, so companies didn't generally expect this outcome. Some things have changed. When going through the applicable laws with the attorney, I noticed that there is a limitation of 7 years. So while my attorney was laying out what to do in order to get my money in as little a few weeks, I just asked him, what if we wait until it's 6 years and 11 months after the transgression and then file, demanding interest? I wanted this because the law stated that back pay is due at 9% APR above the base rate, 3.25% at that time, accrued daily for every day past the due date. We're looking at 12 to 12.5 compound daily APR. The risk is that the company folds in that time, but I decided to take that risk. I sent out one final letter stating that I expect all the owed and accrued amounts to date to be paid immediately. Of course, nothing happened. For the next few years, life rolled on. The company did grow and become a known player in the area. When the time came, I found an attorney and started the case. We had copies of all the communications, copies of the registered letters and responses. The back pay demanded now, including interest, was $112,000. What I didn't know was that in addition to this, there are fixed penalties for each instruction to perform uncompensated overtime. The total demand was something like $135,000. To say the CEO, who was still CEO, lost his shit would be an understatement. I got a very verbally abusive phone call, to which I dutifully recorded, as it wasn't completely unexpected, and was added to the filing. The CEO fought, he tried to, but when the judge heard that phone call, he took an immediate dim view. Reading through all the communication just put more nails in the defense's coffin. The judge just ruled and instructed the company to pay immediately and without delay, and also ordered the company to pay all my legal costs. They also got a full audit from the Department of Labor. The company paid up a week later. To add insult to injury, the evening of the court's decision, the CEO got apparently very drunk and crashed his car into another vehicle while drunk. He got a DUI conviction and lost his driving license for half a year, and his insurance refused to pay out for the damages to his vehicle, a brand new Mercedes S-Class, as he was drunk. All in all, it was a glorious day. Naval officer didn't want to live with enlisted, gets fired. So this happened about a year and a half ago, but I recently heard on the news how far my revenge went. I was a Navy enlisted service member and stationed in Yokosuka, Japan for a few years before I got transferred back stateside. I worked in the main hospital and cared for service members and their beneficiaries. It's a small hospital, so everyone knows everyone. Shortly after I left, I caught wind of a new physician officer working in the radiology department. My friends would say he's horrible to work with, but, that's nothing new. However, someone saw him print a letter, and he left it on his desk and took a picture of it and sent it to me. He's requesting to move from enlisted housing to officer. Edit. Found out it's not a private letter. He did actually send it to housing, and most of housing is ran by enlisted members. For context, military housing is available for those who are married, have a family, or are qualified, based on their rank, and depending on the military base itself. Typically, officer housing is much nicer than the enlisted. In Yokosuka, housing is basically the same and all around because it's overseas, but most of the housing are apartments, and each apartment complex is called a tower. For example, Fuji Tower. There are 9 towers, and 2 are for officers, since enlisted members outnumber officers by a lot. Now, one thing about the military. Shit happens when getting stationed. It is the active duty member's responsibility to either apply for housing on or off base before arriving, depending on what is allowed. If there is limited space and you don't apply for housing on time, then you get put where there is space. So our new officer got placed in an enlisted tower. Mind you, enlisted members have families of their own, and other officers have been placed in enlisted housing before without an issue. Here are some quotes in his letter, and yes, this guy is a PhD. I have many valid objections to living and building of almost all enlisted, and even many lower enlisted being an officer. There is a lot of crime, violent actions, drug use, and alcoholism that happen in enlisted houses. There are also sexual assaults and other perverts. I have a good-looking family, a wife, 2 daughters, aged 3 and 4. They are prime targets to be victim for these enlisted deviant activists. My family should be safe in housing that is with officers. Officers are much more respectable, and these types of deviant activities are incredibly rare compared to the deviant activities enlisted being commonplace. Other officer families will not want to visit us because our family lives on enlisted housing. My children need to make friends with other officer children. My wife needs to make friends with other officers' wives. I need to make friends with other officers. Forcing an officer to live in a large apartment building with almost all enlisted is unethical. And you get the idea. So this guy basically looks down on all enlisted service members, assuming every single one are drug users, perverts, and pedos, criminals, etc. The kicker, he was an enlisted army member before going to officer school. In civilian terms, think of a manager that discriminates and calls all of his subordinates criminals, violent, alcoholics, pervs, drug users, etc., based on your job position, forgetting that some have a family and, maybe aren't doing any of those things. And he not only has the authority to ruin your work life, he can ruin your personal life. Deny days off, make you stay late, write you up if he doesn't like you, and not letting you get promoted. Safe to say, everyone was angry, and I have nothing to lose. I was separating soon, and figured I'd have some fun before I get out. I created a burner Facebook account, and posted the letters and the officer's picture on a popular military enlisted group page. Within 2 days, it spread like wildfire. But I wasn't done yet. The military has some things called challenge coins. Think of it like trading cards, but custom coins that come in shapes and sizes. I designed one with his face and a big middle finger on the back. On top of that, I designed stickers to show how proud us deviants are. Other coin designs came from other people as well, but so far I think mine was more popular. I sold over 70 coins to the initial person who originally sent me the picture at a huge discounted price, so we can sell them for profit to herself. So the officer's face is everywhere because most people keep their coins displayed on their desk. No matter where the officer went at work, he would see his face on someone's desk. And since it didn't have his name on the coin, can't officially say it's him. I sold more stateside and even got some sent to Europe. I made about $3,000 overall, which was nice. The story even got featured on the online naval newspaper and on 2 popular YouTube channels. And if you're military, you know the only time big military care is when it's too big to sweep under the rug. And this story got the officer sent up to the captain's mast, which is like Navy court. He tried to say his wife was the one that wrote the letter, but no one's buying it because her writing style is way worse. She even tried to take the fall, but no one believed her. They both ended up deleting all social media. Due to this, he got served 3 UCMJ articles, which basically are his offenses. But wait, there's more. When you're in the military, you have a deadline on how long you can be a certain rank. If you don't pick up, then you're kicked out. And because he's new and got served UCMJ articles, he won't be up for promotion, and therefore was involuntarily separated. And the officer program he went through pays for his PhD. When the military pays for your PhD, you have to serve 10 years to pay them back. If you don't complete the 10 years, you have to pay the military back with money instead of time. So he lost his job and now has to pay back the military for his PhD. And since it takes a while for the paperwork to have him and his family sent back stateside, you can bet he socially suffered because no one worked with him. Edit. The hatchet became a symbol of enlisted deviance because in this letter, he stated that 2 gangs were attacking each other with hatchets and other weapons at an enlisted housing unit. Whew, boy, that guy's a piece of work. Glad he got what's coming to him.
Hey, can I borrow your attention for a little second? You see, I'm saving up for some equipment items like a VR headset so I can record in VR chat, or a new AT2020 mic. You can help me fund these by going to my throne in the description below. I'll leave it on the top to help you find it. If you enjoy my video, please check it out. Now, that's the end of today's video. I'll see you later.